Ready.
We're ready. We're
All
live.
right, we're live.
Yeah,
Awesome.
awesome. So I'm just waiting for the thing to pop up. So can you just give a brief introduction about what you do?
Sure. I am Stacy Gonzales. I started my career as an English teacher, high school English teacher, and met Janiyah just through LinkedIn and asked him to be our keynote for a virtual career day I'm doing.
I'm
I
so
could
excited for that.
I cannot wait. I'm just gonna be honest. Like my heart melts every time I think about it, for real.
Yeah.
Because you're so cool, and like I'm
Thank you.
old and not cool, so I
No,
feel
I
like
think you're cool. I think you're cool.
all right. So I get to feel a little cool with you, but
Yeah.
and then was an English teacher for a while, and then just kind of worked my way through administration, and now I work at the central office where I basically work with the assistant principals and administrators in buildings to like figure out how we're going to do all the stuff that we need to do for kids.
Yeah. So what was your motivation for being a teacher?
Oh man, I hated school, right?
Really?
So
Okay.
like I think my motivation on some level deep down somewhere was like to change that for kids, right? Like I had ADHD. And
Mm.
so I was the kid that like purposely threw the pencil, like no kids would
Yeah.
get this now, right? But like purposely threw the pencil on the floor. So I'd have to go find it and get out of my seat and
Mm.
pretend. So I think my motivation was to make an environment where kids could like be themselves in high school.
Did you know you had ADHD, or when did you realize it? Because I know a lot of times, even as a female with ADHD, it sort of manifests a little differently. Whereas like the boys, that's like the stereotypical ADHD. But girls sometimes they're a little more quiet. They manifest it in a different way. How did it manifest for you? And when did you realize you had something, or did your parents realize you had something?
Yeah, that's a great question. No, nobody, my parents didn't know. So they did not know. And it was more or less probably when I had a daughter. I had a daughter and she was 5, and I felt like something was wrong with her. So I started researching and reading up, and I was like, well, maybe this is really she's exhibiting, which actually turned out to be anxiety, but they diagnosed her with ADHD. And so as I was reading about that, I was like, huh, that sounds like me. Super creative, super motivated, but always thought of as like the bad kid and like the troublemaker kid because I had all this extra energy. But the extra energy is really a gift, right?
Yeah.
So it probably wasn't until I was about my 30s that I
Wow.
figured that out.
So what were your coping mechanisms? Like, how'd you handle it?
I didn't handle it really well, to be honest. I didn't. Until I probably about in my late 20s, early 30s, just started to like set routines and find projects that I really loved. That's where I found that energy could be focused. I became a runner. So, like, running
Mm.
is really good because when you're running, you're getting all that extra energy out. So, maybe that was a little bit of a coping mechanism. But I didn't have good coping skills, which is probably why I hated high school.
Interesting. So how was it when you went to college?
Not real good at first, right? I got a great story. This will totally date me. I was just telling somebody about this. I had to take I went away to college thinking like I'm gonna get away from my parents, like
Yeah.
most kids who want to go away, or like I'm just gonna go get away from my
Yeah.
parents. And they make you take all those gen ed
Yeah.
stupid courses. And I had this music appreciation. And I have
Okay.
zero
Yeah.
appreciation for music at that point. And
Yeah.
the professor, it's like, 200 kids in a lecture hall. So no appreciation for like what he's
Yeah.
playing. And the assignment was to go to the library, the university library, check out a record. I can't make this up. Check out a record that he told you, like with the piece of paper, show the little librarian, I need this record. And then write on the worksheet what instruments you hear, like as if I put what instruments you
Yeah.
hear in this, right, symphonic, whatever.
Yeah.
And I sucked. I was terrible. And so I stopped going because it was like an 8:00 class. And it was the first college class I failed. And then I think I cried and begged my mother to let me come home halfway through the semester. And she said, no, you're staying. And then I stayed and then came home halfway through my first semester.
Wow. So when you what happened when you came back? Like, would you sort of
Uh,
realize, and how'd you? Because you eventually went back, and you obviously, got more advanced.
yeah, I did, right? So that's the irony. I went back home. They said you are not allowed to just be home, like you're gonna do something. So my dad worked as a building engineer for Chicago Public Schools. He got me a job as a janitor.
Wow.
So I cleaned toilets, boys' urinals. I can clean a boys' urinal like
Okay.
nobody's business. I know what those boys do. They do not aim for the urinal, by the way.
It's sad.
That is like I think there's a game happening in the
Yeah,
boys'
I don't know.
bathroom,
It's
and it
ridiculous.
is not about the urinal.
I mean, the men's
Yeah, I don't know.
bathroom is not that.
I've not been. I mean, let's be clear. I've not been in there when the boys were in there. I just saw the after
Yeah.
effects.
No, look, I was a high school boy. I still never got, like, I don't know. It's like I never got it. I was like, did your parents teach you? I don't know. Who knows?
There needs to be a show about like what happens in boys' bathrooms for girls because
Yeah.
we have like that's a secret that we have no idea what happens in boys' bathrooms, right?
Yeah.
Like in movies and stuff, you always see the girls in the bathrooms.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't really know. We're not really sure about like how it
Yeah.
happens.
No, no. I
Anyway,
think.
so I would go there after I went to community college, took the basics, and then would go work my janitor job at night and eventually found kind of meandered my way through. And I was good at reading, I was good at writing, I was good at speaking and listening. And those are kind of what make an English major. And so I thought, well, I'll get an English degree. And then I got married and had kids. So
Yeah.
I was home for a while. And that got real boring real fast. I tell people this all the time. I don't love other people's children, but I love my children.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love being a mom to my kids, but I didn't want to just be a stay-at-home mom and I needed more.
Yeah.
So went back and became a teacher.
Interesting. Okay. So you went back, and then so how was school this time? Because or did you have the requirements to already be a teacher, or
No,
you have to
I didn't. No, so I had to get my master's with my because they don't let you just be
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
could get a bachelor's in biology or you have yours in some statistics or something, right? Actuary science,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So you could probably teach some sort of accounting, but you would need like the licensure
Yeah.
education.
The teaching you need, it's like the extra whatever. Because I have the master's, I would need the whatever. I'd have to go back to get the education credentials and the student teaching and all that other stuff.
Yeah, and the student teaching, like they make you quit your job for
Yeah.
3 months and not get paid, right?
Yeah. 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 I don't know. I just know that it's not easy, and it's a like I respect teachers so much. Like they put in it's so much, like I'm not saying busy work, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of like planning this and that and presentation and the stuff, and it has to fit a certain mold, like, so it's hard. It's not easy.
Totally. And right now, like I was telling somebody the other day, right now, like think of being in high school. Do you remember when your teacher used to show you a documentary?
Yeah,
Okay, right? And like what'd you do? You slept
No, I
during a
watched it.
documentary.
Well, it depends. If I was tired, like my eyes would go down, but in middle school I had energy, but high school I had a long commute, so I was like tired. But I would watch it if it was interesting. I used to love the elementary school. I used to love when they used to have the TV and they used to push the thing.
On the
That
little
was the
cart.
best, on the little car, and you used to get the movie. I used to, oh my god, I used to love that.
You loved that in school and you didn't fall asleep.
No, I loved it. I enjoyed elementary. I didn't mind. I like, middle school. I didn't mind, but high school I hated because I went to like a specialized high school, so it was very competitive, and I had an hour and a half commute. So it's like it was just, and I used to wake up at 6. I was on the wrestling team, so I used to get home like at 9 p.m. So I was just tired. I like enjoyed some of I enjoyed like my teachers and stuff. It was just like the admin aspect of it
Did
that we used
they
to get detentions all the time. Oh my god, it was terrible.
did you have to like apply to get in that school? Like how
You
did
have to test in. You have to test in.
so you tested in and then like they picked you or was there a lottery?
Yeah,
How
so no. So it's a top 20 high school in the country. So like the average SAT score is like close to like 2000. So New York City. So basically you take a test, and those Stuyvesant, Bronx Science, and Brooklyn Tech, those are the top 3. They introduced some more. So if you get above, like it was out of 800, right? But a really good freaking score was above 530. That's a
Yeah.
really good score. Because the way they do it is you get one wrong at 750. It's very hard to, you know. So Stuyvesant, the cutoff was like 560 something, 66. I got like a 563 or like 556, or I was like very. So I got into the second school. So based on what your score is, you get into, hey, if you apply for this school, you get here, and you could put in the order. But I got into the second school, so, and the thing was, we would always try to compete with the first school, so they would try to implement mandatory tutoring, mandatory this. It was always like a competition of like trying to get the higher SAT score. So that's what ended up ruining the experience. That you know, sometimes what happens is they have certain goals. Like we want to be the top. Like they wanted like 100% graduation rate. We used to have like 99.3 because like one person didn't graduate in 4 years. And so I think when you try to implement those features, what happens is you just put so much pressure on the kids. And we had the long commute that just made it so much more draining. And
And you
at high school, it's
commuted
tough.
on a bus or you drove? How'd you get there?
No, no. I mean, you couldn't drive in New York City. Well, I guess you could, but I didn't have a car to drive. Um, so first 3 years I used a school bus. So it was like, you picked you up in the morning, and you'd get there earlier. And then the last year, since I was on the wrestling team, the practices ended so late. There was no bus there. Like the latest bus left at
Yeah,
6:10 or
right,
something,
right, right.
6:05. Practice ended at 6:30. So by the time we left, it was like 6:45, 7. So I ended up, and you couldn't pay for only the morning or something. So it just didn't make sense to pay that money to only get a half. And then, so I ended up taking the train, and it was like tough because I needed as much sleep. I'd wake up, I'd get out, whatever. I'd wake up 6, leave at 6:45. I used to run to the train station. If there was a bus, I'd see it. If not, I'd run down to the train station down the hill. Then you could either take 3 trains or you could take two, but you had to get out of the train station. I'd run in Manhattan, like, and this. Let me tell you, this is one of the longest stairs in the city, and I'd run up the stairs. Right, I'd run up the stairs, go that, and then run down Lexington Avenue, and then go, and then from the train station when we got to school, I used to run because unfortunately, like the first period teacher, it was one of those where it's like, look, if you're like 3 minutes late, I'm gonna write you down. If you're 3 times late, you get a detention. And then detention, they only offer every other day. If you get detention, you can't compete. So, and all I really cared about was wrestling because I was just so tired. That was like what I looked for all time. So it was just like that stuff. That's what really got me.
So did you do well though? If it was so competitive, how
No, I
would
did
you
well. It was just burned me out.
and you still kept up with all your studies because you had to make your
Yeah,
grades.
yeah, I did decent. I think, yeah, I did well in so I still got like a 90 or like a 80. Like in my school, to get like a 90 is like really, really tough because the sleep is what killed me, right? Because the thing was, like, in certain classes I used to get like the top. There were sometimes I got like the highest grade in my history class. I got like the highest grade on the test in all the classes. Like,
Of course you
I was
did.
just
Of course
I
you
think
did.
math was tough because I couldn't process the stuff because it was calculus. I was in AP Calc, but when I took calculus in college, I was like, I had to like had a friend who like helped me out, and I would barely get it. And then when I took calculus in college, I was like, wow, none of this stuff made sense. Now it makes all like then it just became, I majored in math, so it was just the lack of sleep. It was just like it made it so much harder to just process. Because when I went to college, it was just like, wow, this is so much easier, so much less effort. Like I remember things, I don't have to sit. So, but
So do
wrestling
you
is
think
what
that's why you don't sleep now? Do you think that's why you
no,
have
I
an
sleep
ability?
now. I do sleep
But you
now.
sleep in weird. Your sleep is a weird sleep thing.
No, you know what? I have sleep apnea, so that also contributed. So I probably didn't get it
Yeah.
because on the weekends, oh my god, I'd sleep like 12 hours, 12, 14 hours. Like I used to be able to sleep that much. So I think that's why it's like my I can fall asleep because I probably missed so much of it in high school that I, messed up my circadian rhythm. Like even though I woke up at 6 a.m., I've never, some people they get used to that. And I know some people, someone from high school, he's like, yeah, I still wake up early. I was like, me? I no, like it's just, and it's just my body. It probably contributed there. It's so complex. These things. It's just hard to really pinpoint. I took a genetic test, so I gotta actually follow up with the researcher to see because I do have a gene for to wake up slightly later, that impacted with my sleep app. All these things influence. Yeah. So who knows? But I still did well, but it just like it wasn't me. I wasn't happy. I was burned out. Like I was so burned out that our school, since it was a specialized school, they used to have it like Stony Brook University would come, and as long as you showed your report card, your SAT scores, they'll tell you yes or no, right? And for most people, they got in right away. And even the ones that didn't get in, it was because they had like a 70 average, but they'll still get in later,
Yeah.
right? They had to apply. All we had to do for the application was I just had to copy and paste my essay and submit. I was so burned out, I didn't do it. Because
And
burnout is like real. You don't want to do anything.
burnout is real, right? Like
Yeah.
even now. And that is what I feel like, back to your original point is, like I posted today something, and I totally don't post a ton of things like political. I try to kind of stay away, but I posted something about like Betsy DeVos, who is the Secretary of Education, whatever, and the statement that she made about schools needing to be open to be like families and everything for kids. And in the United States, we've totally done this crazy thing where it used to be like, okay, it's about learning. It's no longer about that. We are the educators, we're the counselors, we're the
so much
physicians, we're the test like mandate, get in this box. We're the social, all your social stuff needs to happen here. We're here to give you your athletic experiences. Like how
it's so much.
How can we?
I don't. I think you guys have so much pressure because like so I'm an assistant wrestling coach. And the head coach, he says like there's some times where it's like you're fighting the parents too, because it's like if the parent does their job, they make sure they stay on top of the kid. It's not a hard time, right? You'll get a good kid, but then you have some that it's like, like the kids are not. He had someone. He's like, he was like, your daughter doesn't even deserve a 0. Like they're like, oh, you got to give a 40 because it doesn't, or 55 because he's like, your daughter did no work, never came to class. It's like, and then they expect like a passing grade. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and it's crazy, right? Like I want to let kids study the things that they're interested in.
Yeah,
so
it makes such a big difference.
Like I know I don't like math, and I don't really use math. Now I do need to know how to use data to develop an argument, right? And pull numbers and figures together. But at the end of the day, I'm going to use that to my advantage. I don't know why I should I made it to geometry. And I think at that time they called it basic. Okay. I also took, this is no joke, I'm totally showing my age, but I took 3 semesters, typing 1, typing 2, and typing 3. So at work, they rip on me because the way I'm on my keyboard, like, hold on, I gotta get this email out. Shh.
Yeah.
Because I'm speed test. I'll take anybody on a speed typing test.
Yeah. I mean, it's important. I mean, sometimes when I look at people who type, and I was like, look, not everybody needs to be 60 words per minute, but if you're not at least hitting 40, then it's like you use this advice every day. You should be like competent.
Yeah, right. Like you should be able to. If you can't hunt and peck at 40, come on.
Yeah.
We got to get something moving here.
And then Daniel Hall says a great thing. He said, don't forget teachers are the scapegoats as well. And it really sucks because I know that teachers, like, they try their best and all that. And sometimes, like, one thing that the pandemic has revealed, a lot of parents have realized just how hard it is to teach a kid. And they're only teaching one kid.
Right? That like in summers, it's not summer anymore and it's not fun. And so we're doing not fun things. And you have to, there's some responsibility involved. And so, yeah, we have, I had thought, which I think is not happening the way I thought. I thought COVID was really going to get us to focus on really learning being about what the learner is learning.
Yeah.
The learner owns the learning. Who owns it? Not you, not the teacher, not it. The learner, the learning's on me. And I really thought COVID would get us there, but it's no, we want you to tell us if our kids got an A, a B, a C, or a D. You be the judge. The need to have somebody else judge your performance. Who's going to judge your performance after tonight? You are. You're going to look back at the video and be like, shit, I should have said that, or I didn't say that, or I didn't, right? Yeah. I'm not going to judge. Maybe some of the people out there will give you the thumbs up or the whatever. That's going to give you some feedback, but you're not going to get an A, a B, a C, or a D, or an F. you're not going to get a numerical value. It's not a
Yeah.
real thing in real life.
Yeah,
So
no, I mean it's very important. So what like what was your philosophy on teaching? Like when you were an English teacher, how'd you get the kids engaged?
gosh, I had a kind of a saying like I was there to teach them about life. And if they learned English or literature or reading or writing in the process, like it was a good day. Because I knew we weren't going to get everybody to like the exact same point in time because we're different. We're all different.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, have you ever read Elie Wiesel's book, Night?
No, I have not.
It's his true story about when he was in Auschwitz in the concentration camp,
Yeah, yeah.
what happened to him. And so, and you know about the Holocaust, right? They
Yeah, yeah,
came
yeah, of
over, they
course.
put you in
Yeah.
ghettos, and then they loaded you up onto trains, told you they were taking you to a better place, but they were really taking you to a concentration camp.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm reading it. I worked in a school where I worked in an opposite school of your high school,
Yeah,
underserved
yeah.
minority students, majority minority students. And one day we're reading the book, and they're like, "Miss, I would not get on that train. There's no way. We would not do that. We wouldn't do it." Da, da, da. So the next day, I'm standing at my classroom door, and I said, "Take your shoes off. There's a new rule. Can't have shoes on in the classroom." And they're looking at me like, "Okay." And every kid,
Yeah,
I,
yeah,
I
yeah.
like, I shit you not, every kid, I had a pile of shoes outside my door, and a few kids looked at me
Yeah.
like, I kind of know
Yeah,
what
what
she's
is she doing? What is she doing?
what's she doing? And I shut the door. Bell rang. I shut the door. I said, "Why do you all have your shoes off? And why are your shoes out there? Because I did not want to." And they're like, "You said." I'm like, "I was joking. Why would you believe me?" "Oh, because I have authority, because I'm the teacher, and you
That's
followed
good.
along blindly, but you
That's a
said the
good lesson.
Jews wouldn't get in the train cars." That's the kind of teacher I was.
And what they kind of had that aha.
They had that aha, right? So like I was that teacher that was just going to be that one that maybe some kids didn't need that, but there
Yeah.
were kids I felt that did,
Yeah.
and I
No,
would be that teacher.
you'd have got to me because I remember we did like the stock market game, right?
Yep,
And
yep,
it was he gave you had to take a slip. There was a buyer and seller, and the buyer had a price like, hey, you have to get it, you have to buy it for your budget is this much, and this is your profit. And the seller was like, you're getting at this price. It was like corn or something, right? And it was funny because you'd have to find a seller. So you have to go around the room. They're like half sellers, half buyers, and you have to go. And it was funny because there was one group, the people who made the most profit was this one kid and this one guy. They agreed on a price. It was like, let's say $4.10.
yeah.
They just kept on selling no matter what. And they made the most money. And you know what the market price was? The
What?
$4.10. That was what the market price ended up being. It was just so funny how like these things work out. And you really learn because I did appreciate the teachers who gave like the interesting books. Because obviously, like, what do I remember? I remember seventh, eighth grade, we read the Lord of the Flies, right?
Yeah,
That's a
yeah,
very interesting book. I actually like looked at it, and it's interesting how the symbolism and all that. The other one that obviously the 1984 and the Animal Farm, those are very interesting books, right? And what I really appreciate about those books is like you don't truly get it until you're older,
right.
right? You don't truly get it. It's like, yeah, wow, you of course you're like, why am I reading this and all that.
Why does
Do you want?
it talk? I don't. I'm not.
Yeah,
Am I right? Yeah.
yeah. The other thing I'll say is what really saved me was the No Fear Shakespeare series. Like
Yes.
this, so because like
It's like
Shakespeare, I could not like you read it and you
side by
can,
side, right?
yeah, yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
that made understanding the thing so much easier because you read it as like, what am I reading? Like it was so hard. So it was like once you read it, that's like, oh, okay. So I think that definitely I did that. I used to be in class. I had my No Fear Shakespeare inside the thing, and I'd read it like that, and I understood what was going on. But yeah, but yeah, I mean, English I like that subject.
Well,
Really.
and like W.E.B. Du Bois, who is
Yeah,
like
yeah,
our first black off, like note, like
yeah,
he is straight off of Shakespeare. Like his stuff, you can draw a straight line through from Shakespeare to his work, right?
yeah.
And
And a
so,
lot of movies obviously use like what is it? Lion King is the Hamlet or is it Macbeth? One of
Macbeth,
them.
I
Macbeth,
think it's
yeah.
Macbeth.
Macbeth,
But
yeah.
like, if you use those things and you make it interesting to kids, and that they need the cultural relevancy
Yeah, of course
connection.
you need it, or else you just like, what am I doing? And you just need like, hey, why is this somewhat relevant, right? Because it's like, especially math. You see a lot of kids like, why didn't I learn taxes? Why didn't I learn, all these things? But it's like you did learn it in math.
And then when you need it,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, and now it's like so easy to get the information. It's
yeah, so
not like,
easy.
I mean, if you can't YouTube today
Yeah,
something, come on,
yeah.
right?
No, I
So,
agree.
and I do not think millennials or Gen Zs are lazy.
No.
That is a wrong stereotype that I think my generation, because I'm a Gen Xer, I think my generation and the boomers, right, which are my parents,
Yeah,
I think we as a generation tend to say things like the millennials are lazy. I don't
yeah,
believe that. I think they just know how to like work the game faster than you do.
yeah,
And so they get it done in a shorter amount of time,
yeah,
which really is smarter because they're not playing your games and they're not jumping your hoops.
yeah. So
Which,
you know what's funny? I'm gonna give you a quote. This
oh,
is from Socrates,
okay.
right? It's 470 BC. So he says, children, they have bad manners, contempt for authority, they show disrespect for elders, and love chatter in place of exercise. They no longer rise when elders enter the room. They contradict their parents and tyrannize their teachers. Children are now and it's just like every
From
parent
Socrates.
from Socrates, right? It's just
Totally.
it's always how it is, right? I'm pretty sure their parents thought they were lazy. They're like, we went through the freaking Great Depression. What did you guys do? And their parents was like, look, we worked days off. It's like, look, we worked 8 days out of the week, right? It's just how it is.
That's just how it is. But I do think that what we've seen in the technology
Yeah,
relative to any other revolution, like the
it's
fourth,
grown so much.
you cannot discount where technology has taken us versus any other, industrialized idea.
Yeah. One thing I will say that they're distracted in the sense of, you just have these devices, right, that you have access to. And these, because I grew up in sort of in the middle, right? I was born 91, so I'm the late, sort of late millennial. I grew up where the phones were new. Not like I didn't have a cell phone till like the 11th grade. I mean, my parents were a little late, but I didn't have it till 11th grade. And even then the phones, like, if you had data on your phone, it was still like, it wasn't data. You had
So
limited text
paper data.
messages and all that
It is
stuff. If
like
you had yeah,
paper
text.
text messages, a certain
Yeah. So
amount.
it wasn't like, you didn't have these apps, and or if you had apps, it was very basic, like a calculator app or something like that. It was like in college when data and these apps. So I didn't grow up around like the Instagram, the Snapchats and all that. And so like, in a way it's a blessing, because imagine now it's like the bullying and all the aspect. Now it's like you just never can disconnect. And the thing is, it's like these companies, they're highly addictive, especially at like, it's teenagers, so hard to regulate, right? We teenagers don't have good discipline compared
Right?
to adults, and it's like you have this access and the dopamine rush. You sort of grow up a certain way, so it's definitely tough.
Did you see that quote about the only two industries that call their people users
Yeah.
is tech companies and drugs, right? Like we call them users,
No,
the
I
drug
mean,
users
yeah,
and end users.
yeah, no, I
We
mean,
talk
it's
about
it's
our
just
end
crazy,
users,
because what people don't get is, right, what happens with a lot of like the feed, like, even the psychology, right? Like if you see a Facebook, one of the reasons why the feed is like blue is the ocean, it's calming. You got right. It's like all these, they go into, they have the things, they know how to. Oh, if we do this, they'll stay on for 10 more seconds. If we do it this certain way, because even if you see the games, how they're designed, they're like the mobile
totally.
games, they're designed to sort of keep you on, and it's tough to fight until you recognize it, until you read. And unfortunately, it's like it's the job of the parents to sort of, most parents tend to be, oh, know this, where it's like they're not kind of teaching the kids or helping them understand. Like, obviously, like my nephew, right? He's always watching stuff on YouTube, right? He's like 12 years old. So now what I'll kind of do is like, look, he's gonna watch YouTube, right? You can't stop a kid from doing that. And so then I'll kind of be like, hey, can you look up like which podcast mic I'll kind of give him different things. So then he'll watch videos on like podcast mics, and he'd be like, hey, you need to get the little thing that covers the mic, and you need to get this. And I'll ask him like, why? So I think it's like you gotta sort of kind of work with that.
Like
Like
weave it in
weave it in.
to make it relevant, and
Yeah.
then start to help them develop maybe a platform. But I also think, how do you as a parent help your kids like self-regulate, right? Like, because if the I don't know, I look around and sometimes I feel like it's the parents that are worse.
No, it
Like,
is.
I
Yeah,
don't
oh
want
yeah.
to deal with you, so
Go watch
here.
TV. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I mean I see what happens with a lot of parents. Their kids cry, iPad. Just give them the iPad. And it's like you're doing that from when they're like 1 years old. It's like that's all they know. They have like this dopamine. That's all they know. Kind of what I saw is like my parents let me go outside. I see a lot of parents just like they don't let their kids go outside, and it's like you send a kid outside, you send them to the park, they'll figure out what to do.
Oh my God, did you hear that? I can't remember. I think it was on Armchair Expert podcast, where he had the researcher on there, and he was talking about and she was talking about how long it would take if you left your kid. Did you hear this one? If you
No,
left your kid outside alone, statistically speaking, how long it would take before they'd be kidnapped.
I could imagine it's like years and
It
years.
was like 700,000 years.
Yeah, because the main thing is it's like most kidnappings are actually yeah, no. And the thing is most kidnappings are actually family, it's actually like custody disputes, right? It's not like random people, random and right? It just doesn't happen. And now they just give them a phone, make sure they keep in contact and right,
So,
that's really
like,
it.
going back to the teaching thing. So here's something I've noticed. I don't have
Yeah.
any research to back this up.
Yeah.
But not only do we, at my generation, so my generation as an Xer, not
Yeah.
only do we have every like Life 360,
Yeah.
find my friends, like we hover our kids. Not
Yeah.
only that, but there's a trend I'm also seeing because I'm a teacher and Tim Gonzales, well, I'm an educator, administrator, but
Yeah.
Tim Gonzales is a teacher. And both in my district and his, he has, I think, 3 in his classes. He's a physics teacher. He's
Yeah.
got 3 kids who are kids of other teachers in his building.
Yeah.
Our district, I think we've got 500 teachers. I'd
Yeah.
say, and I'm just like shooting off
Yeah.
the top of my head, I'd say at least half of our teachers have kids in the school or have had kids go through our schools.
Wow, that's cool.
So like it's cool, but we also want to be even more so where our kids are at, not like in like when I was in high school, my parents weren't teachers. They weren't
Yeah.
like right. It was like you taught wherever and you went to your job. Your teachers went to their job wherever their job was, and their kids went to
Yeah.
school wherever they lived. But now they moved to the community where they teach, so their kids are also in their building.
Yeah.
There's something there. Like
yeah, that okay. I could imagine that.
here, we're hovering like in real life too.
Yeah, no, I mean pros and cons because I guess they're more invested in the system, but then you do want a separation, right? Because your kids are gonna be their own people. You have to be because I see like you have the helicopter parents, and at the end of the day, when your kid makes the biggest life decisions, they may not always have you, but
Right.
you need to sort of be there in the back as like they're speaking to in their head like, well, what will my parents say kind of thing, but you can't literally because you just I've seen it all the time where it's like the kids that are baby, they just never grow up, right? They go through these life decisions and they cannot make it themselves, or if they do make it themselves, it's I don't know, it's just such a bad decision.
It's a weird thing, right? And like, have you seen any of the stuff on parents who are like putting all this social media out on their kids now? So like,
Oh, I'm against that. I'm so against that.
All this stuff is now out there on you by the time you're 14, whatever, to realize like your entire social profile has been created and you've had no choice in it.
Yeah, no, I think like it's one of those things like, yeah, you can make a lot of money or whatever, but I don't know. I just feel like there's no consent, right? They really don't know because you read about the Hollywood child actors and stuff. They go through a lot and it's like, it takes them time, right? Sometimes they go through a lot of substance abuse just because it's like they live a totally different life. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of that. I mean, they have the little cute channels and stuff. Like I see like the little kids, but I don't know, man. It's just too much.
Even just think about, and I don't know, right? Because your parents you said when you were 1991, so your parents had nothing to show it. So like, this generation, like my kids are a little older, 18 and
Yeah,
20,
yeah.
but a little bit young, they could have their entire everything from like if I was choosing to post all their stuff from now, all their stuff's out there.
Yeah, yeah,
They
yeah.
might not even want.
Yeah, yeah. And then the companies that who knows the ramifications when they're 30s, 40s, 50s. It's just it's really crazy. And yeah, I remember like my dad, he was I was like I got better in school after like the third, fourth grade. That's when I like ended up I don't know. I was always decent. That's when I have my second grade report card actually behind me.
Of course you
And
do.
yeah, and it's funny because it said it's like he's a decent student, he's doing well, improving, but he socializes too much. That's what it said, and it's just funny because now it's like that's my it works for me, right? And it like it just kind of crazy how what was I gonna say? Totally lost my train of thought.
I love when you lose your train of thought because last time I was on your show, like watching your show, you lost your train of thought, and I know why you lost your train of thought because I had a thought, and then my
Oh
thought I didn't want to interrupt you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, so I mean, what's your thought? What's the thought you
So my
had?
thought was my best post on LinkedIn,
Yeah,
like my highest post, right? Like everybody's got their thing that
yeah,
they know,
yeah, yeah.
right? Was when I posted my high school transcript
Interesting.
and a picture of my high school transcript and like here's my 2.3 Dr. Gonzales,
Yeah,
whatever, right? And that's the post that for whatever reason
yeah,
blew
yeah,
up.
yeah.
And so I think it has something to do with the idea of your report card is not really representative of who you are, right?
No, it's not.
It's not you. It's like trying to put you into some box and numbers to quantify you in some way. And I think that's what's so cool about what you do with your job and with your company is you help people write a narrative about who
Yeah,
they are versus these quantifiable things that like we're trying to put people in these numbers and categories and I'm
yeah.
not saying that we don't need order, right?
Yeah, no, you know, but there also needs to be flexibility within that order, right? You have a foundation, you have a system, but then you also have to realize that when does the system work and when does it fail? And when it fails, how do we interact? Because what ends up happening, like someone like you, ADHD, it's like they failed because they didn't realize you have the ADHD. They didn't give you the tools for you to succeed, right? If you put someone someone who needs a wheelchair, and you don't give them a wheelchair, and you tell them to run a race,
totally
they're gonna crawl, and then they're gonna be judged on that when it's like that's not them, right? Just like you can't, I say this a lot, I'm gonna steal this quote where it's like you can't judge a fish by its ability to fly, just like you can't judge the bird by its ability to swim, right? You got to
right.
put someone in the right environment so they can succeed and they can perform at their best. And everybody has a different environment that they perform well in.
I love that. I was just talking because you asked me earlier about coping skills, right?
Yeah,
And so I think as you get older and as you learn more and you work on yourself and you dig deep to like work on your shit and take care of the things that you know you need to do better. And I tend to be like in my workplace out there, I'm great. At home with the three people in my house, I lose it. I'll be like, "Are you freaking kidding me?"
yeah,
Which I would never do. I would never do it. I would
yeah,
my professional person. I would never do. And so I was out to lunch with a friend. And she said, really? Like, so that's how you are at home? Like, why, how come you haven't figured it out? And I said, okay, let me give you, to your point, let me give you a metaphor. It's like I've been, my entire life, I've been in a wheelchair. And that's how I
yeah,
function at home with these
yeah,
people. And then all of a sudden I learned to walk. I forgot that I learned to walk.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I forget. So like I'm trying to get back in and it doesn't work that way. You have
yeah,
to remember like it takes time to work on yourself. And that's what I think like we put way too much pressure on young people to have it all figured out in
yeah,
our perspective of this experience and adulthood and we know now from the research like 25 their brains are not
yeah.
your
Develop
brain.
until 25.
25. You know what? I was
Yeah,
married and pregnant. I already had a kid at
yeah,
25. Like, what the hell? I didn't know anything compared to what I
yeah.
know now.
And like my friend, I was talking to my business partner yesterday. He said he just thinks adults are just teenagers who still haven't figured it out. If you really look at it, it's like when you're young, you think you're like your parents know everything, and then you grow older, and it's like you realize that like they were still just figuring things out. And adults, we're just still all figuring things out.
We're all figuring it out. I was so pissed. Oh my God. I have a 17-year-old daughter and she is going to either make me or break me. So the other day I was like, really like, she's like, okay. So are you looking at me with that sarcastic face? Is that really how you want to do this? Is that how you want to talk? Because I can hear you. You don't need to yell like that. Do you want to use a normal voice? And the more she's saying it in a like assertive, calm, the more pissed off I am.
Yeah.
More ridiculous I'm starting to act.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, you know what? I think I just need to walk away and I need to and then, she came and we talked. And then, of course, I started crying hysterically because that's what I do. And I'm sorry, I'm working. I'm just a work in progress.
Yeah.
But I think they're here to teach us as much as we are teaching them. Like you are teaching your parents something if they allow themselves to be taught by you.
No, I think that's such a great perspective because it's like I learn a lot from like my nephew and just like interacting with him and just you learn a lot like the patience and just kind of understanding and just you have to have that empathy to put yourself in like someone's shoes who is that young age and to sort of be like, because sometimes you feel you're so far removed from that you sort of forget. Like, I just think like, what would you do if you had this device that could give you any information you wanted at any second, right? And it could give you all the videos. You don't have to wait. Like, for me, it's like when I wanted to download something, it was like 30 minutes, right? To like download, it was like 20, it was like whatever, 20, 15 minutes. Yeah. So I remember when I got like DSL, I was like, whoa, it takes like, now it's like I'll download like a freaking HD movie in like a minute or two, right? So it's just
totally.
So it's just crazy how it's like.
So I got this for you. I got
what do you got?
What is your earliest memory?
It must be around 4 years old. So I was born in Bangladesh. I came here when I was 3. I don't have any memories from there. I only look at the pictures. Early, like I remember I was like a energetic hyper kid. Like I don't have ADHD or anything. I was just like really just energetic. I remember like I was like a little troublesome. Like I know I went on the roof of my house. Like we had the window open. It's like the second floor, so I went on the roof to the other roof. I remember I did that.
You were like 4 years old and you were walking on the roof. That's your.
Yeah.
They remember doing that. Did you get?
I remember. Yeah, I think like people saw it like, hey, what are you doing? And they tell my parents.
I'm supposed to be on the roof.
Yeah. So that, I remember like learning how to ride my bike in my house. Like, do you see like tire marks? And like we had a little hallway. Like it was like one bedroom, the bathroom, another bedroom. This little like 10-foot hallway in the house. So I learned how to ride my bike there.
Well, because you were in New York, right? So like we
had a decent sized house. It was like a 3-bedroom. It was like,
could you go outside?
Yeah. So I lived in the suburb, like it's not like there were a lot of houses, driveways, all that stuff. So I remember. But
you still learned to ride your bike in the house.
No, I went outside. It was just when I would practice sometimes by myself.
right.
Like, but yeah, I would go in front of my house. I used to play with the neighborhood kids and stuff. I like, I don't know, I had it decent. I was good. And then I when I was really young, so my dad did a lot of things. But when I was the youngest, what I remember is he was a limo driver. Because my dad drove taxi, he was a butcher, just all that. And I used to like wait for him to like come home at night and I'd be like, hey, and then I go to sleep. So that was like, I remember that. And then the friend downstairs, I would always go to his house and like, when I was 4, he used to bully me, right? Like he said, like, take my two. I think like, I don't even remember this, but he told me like one time I had a peanut butter jelly sandwich and he like smacked it out my hand and something like that. And he said I was crying. He told about it and he told like my mom, like, oh no, he dropped it. That's why he's crying. So, but now we're very good friends, it's just funny. But I used to just interact and, be able to sort of be in the neighborhood, be able to go outside. And, my parents were, they were decent, they had their flaws, but they were, they did the best they could.
Yeah. Well, all parents do. They do the best they can with what they know. Right. But I do find it interesting because I like to ask people, what's your earliest memory? Which yours and mine
Yeah.
both had to do with danger. So
Yeah.
I have two early memories. My first one was, did you ever go to like, they'd have those like pop up amusement park, like,
Yeah.
where the townies would come in and throw some
Yeah.
roller coasters together that
Yeah.
probably
Yeah. Okay, I know
totally
about that.
unsafe, right? And then they had those slides where you'd go in like a bag or like a
Yeah.
sack and you'd slide down the slide and it felt
Okay.
dangerous.
Okay. I
Hide.
never did that, but I know what you're talking about.
Okay, so that's my first like memory, and
How old were you?
was maybe like you, like 4,
Okay.
right? So like that's like the first thing I can remember. That's not in a picture. That's not in my cousin was there, and I like
Yeah.
I get vague, but I remember I was probably scared, probably how you maybe were on the roof. So the
Yeah.
first like there must be something about like knowing because when you're little, right? Like you don't have that idea of like what is danger. You
Yeah.
just like touch the stove until you learn like, oh, I
Yeah.
don't touch the stove, and that's bad idea. So like I think there's like a first memory of danger, but my other memory is super clear of me like, were you ever little and you like popped up on the sink on the countertop and you had,
Oh, yeah, yeah. I have a picture of myself on like sitting, yeah, standing or whatever.
right looking in the bathroom mirror, and I
Oh,
remember just
hold on.
looking in
Yeah,
that
go
mirror.
ahead.
Yeah, do you have the picture with you?
No, no,
Because
go ahead. Finish talking. I don't have the picture. I have it somewhere, but I have a picture of me when I was that age.
totally want to find that picture of you and
Yeah.
post that. That's got to be our post. But
Yeah. Yeah.
um, my memory is like looking in that mirror and being like 3 or 4 and knowing like this is you, but this isn't you, but like you're in there somewhere, and it being
Yeah.
this like existential, like super spiritually weird thing,
Yeah.
but nothing you can make sense of in a 3 or
Yeah.
4.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is hold on. That's
Oh my God, you're super cute.
yeah. So that was me, and I have the same clothes that I
And look,
was
you have
standing
the
on.
little V, like you look like a little vampire
Yeah.
there with
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
hair
So I
coming.
had the thing where I'm standing on the stove and stuff, or whatever, standing on the
Yeah,
uh kitchen
that's
sink and stuff. And it's funny because like my nephew, whenever I drop him home, he lives in my friend's mom owns that house. So my friend, that was the house I went to with my friends. I had a friend who grew up there. So my nephew lives not too far from the house that I grew up in.
So can you go to it?
My house? Yeah, I haven't been there in years.
Have you?
But I see in front of it. I see it. I see it and all that stuff. I haven't been in it in years though.
So okay, I'm gonna tell you. This happened to us about 2 months ago. The house I grew up in was
Yeah.
posted for sale.
Oh.
So I said to Tim and the kids, I'm like, let's go look at the house. It's not far from where we live. Like we were super, I'm like, nobody gets to say I lived here. Nobody gets to tell the realtor because like if I buy this house, I don't want him like having any advantage over my emotions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it was a total disappointment.
Really?
Like, yeah, it was nothing like I remembered. Everything seemed smaller and
that's
uglier and not like my grandma wasn't in the laundry room like I remembered she used to be when I lived there with like nothing was right about it. Everything was terrible. And I left and I was like, yeah, we need to leave now.
That's interesting. You know what's funny? Like I live a block away from the school. I went to elementary school, right? So like I went once, whatever, walk in because sometimes they have little events that they rent out to school for the weekend, whatever. And it's just interesting. Like the hallway seems so much smaller. Like they're tiny. I used to think they were massive, right?
Totally.
So big and all that. And it's just crazy because because you are like physically smaller, right? Your world is smaller, so it's like big.
And this is all small. Your experience, it's a reminder to us. We should use that as a metaphor and a reminder. You do not know everything.
Yeah.
And if you think you do, like to not extend that same amount of grace and expectation when other people don't believe or understand the way you do, you have to remember like they don't have the experiences you had. Like we limit other people all the time.
Yeah.
like we were
No,
limited, right?
yeah, no, I think it's very interesting, and but I will say I think my elementary school was like, I think they did a good job. Like most of the teachers I had were pretty decent. It was actually a good school that Bill Clinton came to speak because we were like one of the best school districts in the nation.
Of course you
So
were in my
Yeah,
schools.
Bill Clinton. So he came to speak. So I remember he came and all that stuff. So that was very interesting. But one thing I did, my sister, I do remember like sometimes teachers went out of hand. Like my fifth grade teacher, she was very good, but she had this policy that was not good. For every person that didn't do their homework, we got one additional homework, the whole class. And one day, so every day there's always one or two, right? Now, one day, people forgot like this random form that you had to sign saying, "Hey, I authorize the school to blah blah blah, whatever." It was like 20 kids forgot it. Like the whole class forgot it. We had 20 homeworks. I remember as a fifth
Wait,
grader,
so if one person forgot, you got one extra homework. If two people, you got two. If three,
two.
three.
Yeah, so we had 20 extra homework, something ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
I was doing homework till midnight as a fifth grader.
And you did it like you, because
Yeah, I
like
finished
Stacy
it.
Gonzales would have been like, F that. I am
No,
not.
no. So look, my parents are not like the ones that are like unfair. They're like, well, our teachers used to beat us, so you do what the teacher says. So, and I remember I was doing homework till like midnight for like it was like 8 hours of homework.
You were doing some math,
Yeah,
multiplication worksheets, and
yeah.
oh god, that's terrible. And
I
some
still
language arts, like
see. I'm
the language arts worksheets where you had to circle
Yeah,
the
yeah.
right word or fill in the right,
And look, let me tell you, I finished it at midnight. Right. I was super quick at these
yeah.
things. Like when it was test, I was always one of the first ones done. It was like me and other kids just racing to be who would first and all that. So I was like that kid. It's not like I was slow. I was really quick with test taking. And especially by fifth grade. Like by fifth grade, I was very good in school. That's when I was like, and it was just crazy. And then like I'm Facebook friends with her, but it's like I will always remember that. I was like, I can't believe she did that to us. Like
So
that's so mean.
So nobody like even like cheated to like all like huddle up and be like, you do these five and I'll
No,
do
but
these.
we didn't have. Remember, we didn't have the contact. Like you had to
Yeah,
actually like call the landline and
it's
stuff.
true.
Like
It's
it's not
true.
like now where like the kids
Yeah.
now they form a Google Classroom or they form like a group and be like, "Hey, I do this." Take
Group, yeah, we're
pictures.
all
Like no,
yeah.
it was just so I remember that, and so I remember like I see sometimes because I used to tutor a kid, and my sister had the same teacher, and like I never understood why teachers like homework. Homework is all good, but some teachers give like 3-4 hours, and it's like why would you do that to a kid?
Well, and for you, what might be 5 minutes, for me is probably going to take an hour.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right? So like, let me just say to you, say, Stacy, spend an hour, give me some, if you give me trust, I will
Yeah,
give
yeah.
you way more in return.
Yeah, no, and
Every
it's
time.
yeah, so I just found that there were some teachers that were very good and then some teachers that like really and then my parents were never like advocates in terms of they were like, "Oh, well the teacher you should do. It's like the teacher should give you more homework." And it's just kind of crazy because I remember in first grade I had a teacher and I don't know, we had to have the kid like the kid who used to bully me. He used to write these stories for me because you had 20 vocabulary words and you had to write a freaking story with all 20
Using them.
vocabulary words.
Yeah, of
And it's
course.
like, how do you do that as a first grader? Where it's like the words are all random and all that stuff. Like, put them in sentences or maybe write like use
Listen,
3 words.
that's why you went into actuary science, because somebody like me would have had that shit done in 5 minutes.
In the
Give
first grade,
give me 20 words, I will make you up something, because that
that
was
was tough.
probably like my thing, right?
No, because the thing is, it was like words that were all random. It was like clown and race car and fire truck. So the stories were absolutely ridiculous. It's not even like the stories went together.
Okay, so here's a great story. Here's a story you're
Yeah,
gonna love. So I had two younger sisters,
yeah,
and not much younger, right? We're all about 3 years apart, and
yeah,
I was the oldest. And so my parents would, I'd be the babysitter. And what I would do, you said like at the beginning, like we're gonna go full circle now. Like, why did you
yeah,
become
yeah,
a teacher? I guess this might be it. They
yeah,
would leave. We had a piano teacher. He looked like Gorbachev. He had a big thing
yeah,
on his forehead, a big like
yeah,
birthmark. And so my parents would leave me to babysit, and I would make my sisters write essays. Why does Mr. Pinkle have the scar on his forehead? And I want it to be creative and I want it to be good. And it needs to be 3 paragraphs and you need to use introduction and like, right.
yeah.
So like, I would totally love the fact that I got 20 words to make a story out of.
Yeah. I mean, I just found out that was a tough assignment for me. I mean, for most kids, it's tough,
What
right?
was
Like
easy for you? What was easy?
everything but that. That was the only like hard thing. Cause look, give me a sentence. I could write the sentence. I could do spelling. I could do all that. It was just that one thing as a first grader that was like I can't come up with the story. Like,
Did you ever
it's
fail anything? Do you remember failing?
no. I mean, one time I did. I think I got like a failing grade in Spanish because I didn't like the in sixth grade. I didn't like the teacher, and then I purposely like did bad on the test, and she was just mean to me. So it was just one of those like rebellious and just teacher. I felt the teacher was unfair, but yeah, other than that, and then one time I was failing in the senior year, second semester. I did not care. I had like a 55 in the class, but that's because like I did not like apply myself. And then eventually I got up to 75. I ended up doing well, and I pulled it up back up to 75. But that was
You
it.
are like my oldest son. He
Yeah,
right now is more than halfway through his semester, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm kicking the can." And I said, "I don't listen. I don't know what that means. Can you like provide more description?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm kicking the can because that means when it's like 3 weeks or 2 weeks before the semester ends, I'll put my grade back up to like 75, 85,
yeah,
90." And I'm like, "Are you really?" He's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Oh, wow, that must be nice to be able to like wait that long. That like
yeah. So
you could."
I only did that with one class. Like that was second semester senior year because I was so burned out. Other than that, like no, I was pretty on top of my school.
You followed your stuff. You
Yeah, I
followed.
mean, my parents always sent me to extra stuff. Like in sixth grade, like when I was entering the sixth grade, I was taking eighth grade math, like in the summer school. So I was like with all these people who failed. I was like in sixth grade. So I was going to sixth grade. I had the highest grade in that class.
Of course you did.
So I was very good. The English I didn't have the highest grade, but like I was very good at math. English I was like decent, but not like that wasn't where I shine. That's not where I shined or shone.
Shined.
I shined. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not where I shined. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. That's not that. Yeah. So, but yeah. So, yeah, my parents always had like I was always in tutoring. I was always in like extra stuff.
So you
Just
were like
advanced.
made. You were like the kid that was going to be made to be super smart.
Yeah. 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 So, I mean, school I always did well in. Like,
And so do you feel like knowing that your parents kind of set you up in this space
yeah.
to be super high performer, right? Like, because my parents did not,
Yeah.
which caused me even more to be a high performer. But you were like in a expectation to be a high performer. Did that drive you to continue to push yourself? Does it drive you now?
No.
What
I mean,
drives
look, I will tell you that it it's it was beneficial. I'm not saying it's not beneficial. It is very beneficial for your parents to be involved, to care about it. But I think my parents were a little too extreme in the sense that I was the one, hey, you got a 95. Well, this kid got a 98, or you got 100. Why didn't you get the extra credit? Or why didn't you, they were always that. Eventually you just stop caring, right? I was like, oh, look, I'll do as well as I can. If this 97 is not good enough for you, it doesn't matter, right?
When
Like,
did you stop that? Like when did that switch for you?
I mean, it just became more. It's not like a switch. It's more like a gradual that you realize that they'll never sort of be happy with you because there's always a kid who's like, oh, this kid went to Harvard. This kid, because I remember like I got into second best school, and like my mom was like, oh, you're not gonna get into anything. I was like, watch, if I get into something, you got to give me $2,000. And I still remember this. I was like, you got to give me $2,000, and she's like, okay. And then I got into second best school. She's like, well, you still didn't get into first, and the agreement's the first. So it was always like that. Then eventually it was just like. I just never. I was like, look, I don't even care about showing you things. It's just, it's a very, it just sort of destroys you in terms of you're just like, screw this. I don't care about impressing you.
Do you
Right?
still feel that now?
Yeah, yeah, I still do. Obviously, look, I understand. Look, they did with what they know. That's what they know.
That's right.
They grew
That's
up in a
right.
certain culture, so I understand it. But I care more about. I don't care. Look, I'll take care of them, right? I'll make sure they're okay. But my goal in life is not to impress. Obviously, I want to make sure they're happy with their lifestyle. They're taking care. But my goal in life is not to impress them, right? It's
That
not to.
that is huge. And if
Yeah,
the sooner you can do that, and the reason
yeah,
I
yeah,
ask is because I would say for me, wasn't able to make that shift probably until like the last 2, 3 years, where
Yeah.
like, if you're proud of me or not proud of me, I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do me.
Yeah.
And that's hard.
Yeah. The thing is, because in college I always did well, and then then I got into Columbia, so I think that was like a big shift. They're like, oh, he's not an idiot. Like
Yeah.
he got into like an Ivy League, so that was so I'll tell you, my dad came around. Like he was just like, okay, my mom always has the, oh well, this person earned this much when they graduated, so I just ignore her, right? It's just like I tell her like, you don't know what you're talking about and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's sort of where I'm at, and it's just one thing. Like I'll make sure, with my kids, or or just or even when I talk to kids, I was like, look, don't let it define you. It's not, that's not the end goal. And even with my sister, I told her, I was like, look, you got to stop, give her some freedom. She's not a bad kid. She's on top of her stuff. She knows her stuff. Like, don't worry, like she'll be okay. So yeah, my dad is like, he kind of sees, like, he's like, okay, because dad, he doesn't, he's like, oh, you're on Facebook, like, are they paying you? Is Facebook paying you? I was like, dad, that's not how it works, right?
That's how
So
it works. But
yeah, yeah,
take
yeah.
the
So now
risk.
they kind of see, okay, look, the business is growing, because it takes time for it. So at first they had no idea. They're like, I also had a good job, so they're like, oh, okay, you got a good job. It's because I was an actuary, so that's not easy to get. So that, but then I left that. They were like, what are you doing and all that stuff, and like, they're not against it, but they're not necessarily the most supportive. But it's also because they don't know. Because to them, it's like the dream is to come to the U.S., go to a good school, get a good job, right? Like I remember, so my dad's a construction worker. He has his own business. I remember one time in summer, I asked him like, "Can I work for you?" And he like yelled at me. He's like, "I didn't come to this country so you can work construction under me." Like to him, he was like big on that. He was like big. So look, it's pros and cons. Pros and
He's
cons to
like, I
everything.
came here I'm doing this shit job to give you
Yeah,
a better
yeah,
opportunity to know. Where
yeah,
I had
yeah.
a dad who was like, I'm going to teach you your white privilege and you're going to go work as a janitor. So that way you don't ever take anything for granted.
That's
Right.
good. Yeah,
So
yeah. Yeah, no,
different,
I mean
but
it's
the
different,
same.
and
Our parents both wanted us to get the same lesson.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
the way
Just
they
different
came
ways.
to it was from different
And
ways.
the thing is, it was more that he didn't want me to work under him, because I did work at Popeyes. Like I did have, like, he got me my first job at Popeyes,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So I worked the summer like after ninth grade, so he got me that, and so he did help in that aspect, right? It just, he would see it as sort of a shame that like my son's working for me, right?
Fascinating.
It's just very interesting.
Is that cultural? Do you think it's a cultural thing?
Definitely cultural. Definitely, it's a
Definitely.
culture, right? Like an
Where my
immigrant.
dad had great, if you asked him, I think he would say he had great pride that he could take his lily white daughter and put her in Curie High School with 19-year-old majority, like minority, and
Yeah, yeah.
right, and like I could mop up, cafeteria floors with kids my age.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Also, it's also personal, because there are a lot of immigrant families where you work in the family business and stuff, right? So it is a little cultural yet personal too, right? Because it's not like all immigrants believe the same thing.
Yeah,
It is
right.
also a part of his aspect, and how for him it would bring him shame, because I was always, because my family, like both my sides, are pretty well educated, because my mom, my mom has a degree, but she's always been sort of a housewife, like babysitter and stuff, but her sister's a doctor.
Wait. Moms aren't babysitters. Like
No,
we're
no,
not.
no, 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 no. I mean
Oh
that she was outside of being a mom, she was a
my God,
babysitter.
we're not
No, no,
babysitters.
no,
Those are her
no,
children.
no, 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 no. She babysit other kids.
Got it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So all the time, like after school, she'd pick up the kids, because we live by the school. So she'd come, so I'd always see like little kids and that stuff. So not in addition, not me. Like for me, yeah, she would pick me up from school, all that stuff. She did her job as a mom. But yeah, so her sister's a doctor in Bangladesh. Her brother's like a PhD in physics. He's like a professor. And then her other two brothers, they're like generals in the army back home.
She's one of two girls.
One of three. So
Okay.
her other sister's in Canada. She was like a biomedical engineer. She came to Canada, so she had to get a downgrade, but she just finished her degree, and I think just got a job. Then the other my dad's side, it's more not necessarily his siblings, but their kids. So like like one of my cousins like recently got a job at Facebook. The other one has like so all my siblings. So for him, it's kind of that. There's always like that aspect.
Wow. So like super, super high performing
Yeah,
individuals with a extreme amount of pressure to like ultimate achieve in the United States or
yeah, yeah,
or
yeah,
in
yeah,
your
yeah.
wherever they're
Yeah,
at.
because I remember like my cousin one that works at Facebook, he's younger than me, and his cousin is like a year older. So he was like, we were the ones that fought each other, whatever, that stuff. And yeah, he was just like, yeah, your cousin, he knows how to name all the capitals of the country, all that stuff. So
So your comparison wasn't just in your school, the competition, it was in your family dynamic. There
well,
was
he didn't really. That was only one time when I was young. It's not like it was a common
no,
thing,
no,
but
I'm
yeah, it
just
was always.
like the competition being like, this one's a doctor, this one's a biomed, this one's an engineer, this one's
It
a
didn't.
that.
It didn't really. They didn't really compare to the family. It was more like this that mythical kid in school, like this kid, like that's what it was. It was like, oh, this kid is over here, this kid is doing that, this kid, and it's funny. It's like I'm doing better than a lot of them
Is
in
this,
terms
is
of.
this, is this like when my daughter says to me, everybody gets to stay out until 12:30, and I'm like, yeah, well, I'm not everybody's mom. Your ass is home by 10:30.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean that's still more than fair. No, this was more that it was grades. It was always grades focused. Like they got this on the SAT. They got this. They got this. It's just so annoying.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. But it's all I that's why like with my nephew, like I emphasize education, I emphasize things and all that. But I also tell him, be like, hey, did you try your hardest? And outside I like really try to get involved. Like like I built a PC and then I sent him like the specs and he was like, oh, you should have got this one because it's better. And that's kind of what I try to just get him stuff that he's interested in. And I think he does like little video editing on his phone on TikTok and just like little things just to make sure that they have fun. Like what I do with my nephew is like whenever pre-COVID, I would bring him around because I like work out of this office with my friend. I'd bring him around and he would sit and he'd kind of listen. And then my friend would be like, one of my friends, he with his business, he'd be like, hey, can you post on eBay? So he'd like, hey, this is how you do it. You copy and paste these things, just these little things. And then he tells me, he's like, hey, Janai, he's like, I think I want to apply to, I want to get a summer job. He's like, look, I think he's like, I looked up, I looked up state. It says you could work at 14. Like, it's good. You got to get them to
Get
like
a
do these
worker's
things.
permit if the
Yeah, yeah. And then he was like, but my parents say I have to wait till 16, so I gotta wait till this grade. And then I was like, yeah, you can do that. And it's just, that's the main thing I think with kids. Give them some power, give them some ownership. Establish the boundaries, but also
That's right.
help them understand that, hey, look, we're here to support you. Do your things, learn, and give the interest. I think that's what like. It's finding the right balance, which is always tough. It's tough.
You're never going to get it perfect, but
Yeah,
you're just always going to keep going in and trying. And that's all
yeah,
you.
yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, I mean, what are some of the changes that you sort of want to see in education?
Oh gosh.
And let's stick to two or three, because I know it's like a
Yeah,
laundry
right.
list.
Yeah,
It'll
everything.
never end.
I think the number one thing, and it's kind of where we started, right? Full circle. How do we help the learner have more agency over his
Mm,
choices about what I want to learn, how I want to learn it, and how I want to get feedback about it? Like that would be if I could change that piece. Then the second piece would be like choice. So right now we've got this model where for many traditional schools, you are live streaming. It's like the worst documentary film you've ever seen,
yeah. Oh my. Yeah.
right? So I've got 18, 15, half the class at the school, half the class here
Yeah.
virtually, and I'm the worst documentarian ever,
Yeah.
right? And I'm a talking head, and the 15 at home are probably asleep.
Yeah.
And so, right, like how
It's
could
tough.
we it's a terrible model. So how can we make it about when you need to learn what you need to learn? Kind of like you. with your homework back in the day. You did it when you knew you needed to do it, and you handled it. How
Yeah.
can we have kids handle it on their own time, place, path, and pace? I guess that
See,
that was
yeah, no, and I don't think you guys can do it on your own. I think you need the parents' help because it needs to be there because especially now, like I got my career coaching certification recently, and it's you you kind of have to understand your kid because I found out that what a lot of parents do is they try to teach their kid or understand the kid as if they were someone else. But it's like each kid is even maybe their older brother or whatever, and it's like each person learns a different style. It's has different aptitudes, has different, because the way you sort of parent an introvert versus an extrovert, the way you parent someone who is more hands-on versus someone who's more wants to read or someone who needs videos or is a more visual learner is different. And so I think it's like the parent sort of needs to help the kid understand themselves, right? Because kids don't understand themselves.
yeah, they don't understand themselves. And I wish in schools we did a better job at really like you said to me at the very beginning, like, what were you like as a teacher? And I said, I taught them about life. And then if they learned
Yeah.
English in the process, great. And I feel like it would be so much better if we, especially with COVID, forget. I'm not saying totally forget the academics. I'm not saying you
Yeah.
don't know math or you don't need to know how to write.
Yeah. Yeah. Of
But
course.
but when we have you with us, if I get the opportunity to see kids face to face right now,
Yeah.
I need to make it about what do you need? How can I
Yeah.
help?
Yeah.
What is really problematic for you? What are you struggling with? How can we talk through it? Like the learning about the math things or whatever, it's you can always get that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
in a moment you're struggling emotionally and you need a person, if you need a person, like that we've got to make it about the people. Schools are about the people, about the community. So for me, I'd be like, I like I told you, I sit with a physics teacher, and some days I'm like, oh my God, stop screaming physics formulas and ask the kids how they're doing.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
ask
Yeah.
them what they need. And then he does a mindfulness activity. I'm like, oh, you're so cute doing
Yeah.
mindfulness activities in your physics class. So I think we just need a healthy balance. Kids are
Yeah.
stressed, they're overwhelmed, suicide, anxiety, depression is on
Yeah.
the rise. We've got
It's
to figure out in this virtual space how to make social connections and emotional supports. And I've never met you, and we're
yeah.
totally like
Yeah.
you're
We're
my guy,
best friends. We're best friends.
right? Right?
Yeah.
I could text you. And we've never met, and so we have to
Yeah.
teach kids how to be able to do this in healthy ways with
Yeah,
people.
no, that's very important because healthy weight. Because I have an Instagram account, and I remember it was this young girl who was like always messaging me, and I told her, I said, "Look, I don't mind doing this, but I was like, you got to be careful when you're messaging accounts you don't know that older because I was like, look, you're getting too close. It's not healthy. As much as I was like, you can't be messaging me every day, right? Because you don't know me." And I was like, I have good intention, but you don't know the next one because that's something that happens, especially with a lot of the, male, female, right? You got to be careful when there's a big power imbalance when a teenager is messaging someone in college. And, I've seen a lot of people like they try to fit in and all that stuff. So it's like, it's just so tough, right? That they don't know. They just think like, oh yeah, this person my friend, or they're cool, or they got me, and this and that. And especially like the girls, right? They're like older guys, and you just got to be careful because there's you, a
Because
lot
there
of people
are
are.
creepers out there,
Yeah, so
right?
many.
There
Yeah,
are bad,
yeah,
creepy people, but I do think there's a space to disrupt. And when
yeah,
I say disrupt, I mean innovate. I don't mean like, right? You cannot scale the level of social workers and
yeah.
psychologists
You
that
can.
we need right now for this generation. We
Yeah.
need to figure out the Uber model for social supports, emotional support,
Ooh.
social connections. And if we figure that out with some trained people, with some ways in which you can do that in this type of a format, I think we can really help people. I don't know where to take it next, but there is
Yeah.
something to certainly be able to do that for people because
So
that's what
yeah,
we do.
I think Joel, Adam says Zoom is such a limited tool for schools. There are so many better tools that build a better interaction. That's true. And then Joel says, learning how to relate through technology is massive, right? It is very like important to sort of, do these things and all that. And I think it's like there are some teachers that are getting it, and I think it's just anything that happens too fast, it just takes time, right?
Well, at
Some
the same
people.
time, like, how do you make? And I'm being serious because somebody has it. I'm free giving my ideas away. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not, right. How do you take what Uber did in the industry of transportation, and how do you do that for human connection in a healthy way? How do you vet, right?
I
Because they
Yeah.
take, you take your car and you drive it through the Phillips 66, and they say, yes, this car is fit to drive.
Yeah,
You're not
yeah.
a creeper, you're not a whatever. You've gone through some training, and now you can connect some people in a healthy way. There's got to be ways to do that. People are suffering.
You
There's
know
got to
what I think? I think it could definitely be done, but what you need is you need everybody like trying to do the same thing, right? Right now you have a lot of people sort of working against each other, or the thing is, unfortunately, it's like the loudest parents end up getting the most attention, right? Whereas like my parents are gonna be like, "Ah, yeah, do what the school says." Then you get another parent where it's like, "Hey, no, no, you can't do that because XYZ." Like I like see these TikTok videos of like, they're teaching history, and then the mom will come yell and be like, "Why are you teaching this? This is not true. This is
But
fake." Blah.
it's got to be, it's not going to be parent centered. It's not going to be the
No,
parent
it's not
centered.
parent centered, but parents have to be involved.
Parents have to be involved, but parents aren't involved now in TikTok, and kids
Yeah,
are there. They're not doing healthy stuff there.
yeah. Well, I mean, parents need to be involved in the sense of they need to be okay and not fighting against a solution, right? They either support it or they're okay with it, right? Because once you start getting them right, then they start going to school boards, and then it goes into I'm gonna take my kid out of this school, and the school loses funding, right? That's what always ends up happening, right? That it's like they're trying to balance that.
True. But does it have to be around schools?
Unfortunately, in order to be fast, it probably has to go outside of school.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's where innovation happens, because innovation is not happening in schools.
Yeah.
As much as I love schools, as much as I'm an educator and want it to happen in schools, we
Yeah.
are a bureaucratic institution.
Because I know bureaucratic is like, where's the data? Where's this? Where's that? How do you get it?
It's like
It's not.
it's like a publicly traded company.
Yeah.
You've got a board, you've got to, make
Yeah.
your quote, right? Like, there are things that you have to do.
One thing I really like. I really like Khan Academy.
Hmm.
I really like what he did. Just like he made it so much easier because it's like for college. I mean, it was helped me, some subjects in college, but I can imagine like, I wish I had something like that in high school where it's like, hey, you don't understand something. So I think like you'll get people, and the good thing is a lot of people do want to change the space, right? People like you, people like me who've gone through school, who've kind of seen, what are the good, what are, what's bad about it.
So, what is
And
the Khan Academy for the social emotional pieces that kids need right now?
you know
What's that?
what? You know what I think it is? It would be the Khan Academy, but it would be the Khan Academy of like self-awareness, of depression, bipolar, this and that, normal things. Because I found that a lot of for males specifically, it's just having an older male figure. Like my dad and I don't like talk like that, right? Like we live in the same
Sure.
house, but we don't really talk, right? It's just like stoic man, just yells at me and this and that, and brief conversation. But for a lot of guys, it's just understanding like the world, understanding like a lot of these things about like confidence, understanding how to interact with other people, how to handle these situations, right? I think those things, even just having that, a lot of things, it's like, man, if I wish I learned this earlier, it would have just made things so much easier. I think like a resource like that, how to handle bullying, how to handle this, how to handle that, because what ends up happening is, especially for a lot of guys, they turn to unhealthy resources, and
Yeah.
that sort of guides their worldview, at least in this from 15 to 22. Some sort of snap out, or some don't. And so I think something like that. I think maybe like a Khan Academy for like social work, for all the things that sort of, at least so that, because there's only so many social workers, only so many things, and then kind of it'll take out a lot of burden so that they're getting less cases, but at least the kids know what to expect and why they're going there. Because a lot of times they go there, they don't know what
They
to
don't
even ask. They don't know. It's simply you just right.
like normalizing, especially I agree with you. Normalizing the feelings that young men have because young men are so shamed
Yeah,
for their feelings, right? And
yeah,
if
yeah.
you
It's a big issue.
it's a huge issue. It's a huge issue. So agreed. If there's some way that I do, I feel like females, we are like the female age of empowerment, empowering more women
Yeah,
to be more empowered, which is great because I know what it's like to be a female that's not felt empowered.
yeah, yeah,
How are we helping empower our young men?
yeah.
And
I mean,
validate.
because they have like the male suicide rate is very high, and a lot of it is come to like you see a lot of issues. Men don't talk like
No,
so many things, and it's just sad, and it's part of it's like yes, society you're not supposed to talk, but part of it's like we also don't feel comfortable talking because we're not taught to talk, right? And it's just like this cycle that goes back and forth.
correct. And you're shamed.
Yeah.
There's a great book. It's called The Mask of Masculinity.
Okay.
Have
Okay.
you ever read
No,
it?
I have
Oh,
not.
fantastic! You should get it. I'll send it to you
Okay.
after we're off. That'll be
Yeah.
my one of my things I give to you. But and in it, he goes through basically like all these things that men have been taught and the things that have been perpetuated over years and over years and over years. And I would say I even see it in my own house. Right, my son will have way more emotionally in-depth conversations with me than he will with his dad
Yeah, yeah.
for whatever reason.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
It's awkward with his dad, and his dad's awkward. He's on. I'm like, oh my god, the two of you just like
Yeah.
let's all sit down and now talk about our feelings.
Yeah, yeah.
And then sometimes you're like, okay, we're done with you now. You've exhausted our emotional capacity. Like we're done for today.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean it's glad. And yeah, I mean for females, obviously, how to sort of handle these feelings, how to sort of interact, how to deal with these just friend relationships, romantic relationships, how to identify like who's good for you. I think just both sides, because one of the most important things that like the most important decisions you ever make is your significant other, your choice in your significant other. And then unfortunately you have hormones and you have these feelings that are very intense and they sort of shape it. Like I've seen a lot of people like, I've seen people, it's like, hey, oh, my boyfriend got into this. You get into your dream school. No, I got to stay in the local school to be with my boyfriend. And they break up after a year and they lose this opportunity. Like, or,
Totally.
or their girlfriend, same way. And it's kind of like, you have to know how to sort of see these things and make the right decisions.
Yeah, those are important things that and I don't think those are things that your parents, that's why smart parents will build a village around you,
Yeah, yeah.
whether it's therapists, right? Like I found great therapists for my kids. I've picked great friends that I know
Yeah.
even my mom, even my own mother. I'm like, you never treated me that way. You never talked.
Yeah, yeah.
Why are you talking about her about but it's because it's okay because that it's different when it's your grandkid versus your own kid, right?
Yeah.
So I do think that there's something to be said for that.
Yeah. No, 100%.
100%.
100% agree. So we
How did you
gotta.
fly so fast?
I don't know. You're good. You're my
I
best friend, so that's why.
I know, right? Like I'm
Yeah.
so excited for you to do our keynote, which
Yeah, I'm
we
excited.
at some point do need to plan.
Yeah,
Except, we'll figure it out
we'll figure it out.
the day before, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing it the day before you. This one I'm gonna. I'm starting now. Like I'm doing the outline now and all that stuff. So
Because still need to send me the questions, remember?
yeah. So I'm gonna send you. We'll talk about that. But yeah, I'm just kind of doing it. Like, what are going to be the leading questions? Only because it's like one of those things that's like time passes by, and I don't want tomorrow to be December 1st, and I'm like, oh my god, what do I do? And all this stuff. Yeah,
You're
so
gonna be
I don't want
so
to.
amazing. I can't even wait to put the
Yeah.
promo out.
Yeah. So cool. So we'll any final words to the audience? I just want to thank Joel, Adam. Thank you for all your wonderful comments. Kelsey, Jatinder, she's laughing. She was like, "Thanks for the clarification about the babysitter comment." So my mom was actually a babysitter for other kids. She was
Yeah,
a great mom. She was a mom to me. Thank you, MD Rashid. Katie says, "Does anyone else think homework for a kindergarten is just inappropriate?" I think so. If they're not, just little simple coloring and adding, and that's it. They gotta have fun at that age.
that's right.
So yeah, any final words?
No, I appreciate you. I appreciate being
And
here.
we're gonna do this again.
We totally are.
Yeah.
We're a good team.
Yeah.
I appreciate you.
All right. Thank you for the audience. Thank you, Stacy.
Okay.
Appreciate you.